Hey friends, and welcome back to another episode of Entitled People. We got some more Reddit stories to check out today, so be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it, guys. I forced my bad neighbors into an unwanted move. I got my very first apartment at the ripe age of 26. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford one without roommates. I was a model tenant, paid my rent on time every month, polite to the office workers, never caused trouble. I lived on the top floor of a 3-story building. Well, 2 years after I moved in, I had new neighbors move into the apartment below me. I was working a swing shift, so my hours were 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and I often stayed up late to 3 a.m. to do minor chores, dishes, cooking, cleaning, but not vacuuming. I also had 2 cats at the time. My new neighbors immediately went on the warpath against me. I could not make any noise without them banging on my floor. I unloaded my dishwasher at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, and they flipped out. They complained to the office about my herd of animals. They sent police to my door at 9 p.m. because I was watching TV, at a reasonable volume with the subtitles on. I literally could not make any sound without them complaining. It culminated in one of them pounding on my door for 10 minutes after I dared call the office to express my frustration. So I called the office back, told them that I did not feel safe in my apartment due to my neighbor's actions, legal grounds for me to break my lease. But then I dropped my bombshell. My neighbors had 4 people in a 1-bedroom apartment that had a 2-person max capacity. Apartment management told my neighbors they had to move into a more expensive 2-bedroom apartment or their lease would be terminated. They moved to the larger apartment on the other side of the complex. My new neighbors were great. 2 adult men who smoked weed on the balcony. Never even spoke to them. Loved them. Helped my coworkers get around a sneaky store pay trick. I worked in a big department store where it was well known that you were fired at 5 months and 3 weeks. Health insurance kicked in at 6 months. They also had sales quotas you had to reach. If you reached it one quarter, then the next quarter you had to sell as much or better. Make it, 10% raise. Miss it, 10% pay cut. But since in the summer people buy for back to school, and right before Christmas there's a big month of sales, each quarter is set up so that you get a lot of sales one quarter, then fewer sales the next quarter, then a lot of sales, then fewer sales. So you start at $10. Summer back to school sales, you have 11. Then fall sales, you go down to $9.90. Christmas sales, you're back to $10.89. Pay goes down and it just keeps going down despite cost of living going up. I spotted that as soon as they mentioned it in training, but knew I'd be gone by 6 months, so no big deal. That last month, I went from being one of their very best salespeople to selling a $7 belt. I rang up every sale under my coworkers' names. I did all the back of the room work so they could focus on customers. End result? Every single one of about 6 people made their quota and got a raise instead of a pay cut. The floor manager was a nice woman, also got a raise. When I was brought in to be fired, they had to hunt for a reason. They finally fired me for going home sick with permission from the manager an hour before I was supposed to log out. I pointed out the $7 instead of $7,000-ish I normally made in sales, collected the paycheck and walked off grinning. Already had a new job lined up, and good recommendations from coworkers if I ever needed them. My coworkers all had raises, and the store lost a very good salesperson, as well as had to spend the next 6 months. The next quarter was a big sales quarter, paying everyone that higher pay rate, and then the bump for the big sales quarter too. Woman was crying that she didn't get to take my sister's kid. So for context, my sister's ex-boyfriend, we'll call him Nice Brother, who is the father of her child, recently passed away a couple of years ago, and the story takes place at the funeral. Our families were very close, given that he was the father of my niece. And even though they broke up and my sister got married to someone else, we all cared for and valued him a lot. So now the entitled person. At the funeral, we were all sitting down, when all of a sudden this lady pops up, runs to the casket that's about to be lowered, and starts bawling. Not weird at this point, a lot of people were crying, but she was screaming. And I didn't question it too much, but I did find it a little odd, since I'd never seen her before. Fast forward to later in the funeral. The ceremony was done and we were all talking. Me and my other sister, not the one who dated Nice Brother, and the sister of Nice Brother were talking. I'm good friends with Nice Brother's sister since we're the same age and have the same interests. This will be important later. All of a sudden, we hear entitled lady, the one that was sobbing on his casket and causing a scene, talking to a friend of hers. She says out of nowhere, "Yeah, I was actually gonna get married to Nice Brother and take Nice Brother's kid from OP's sister, and we were gonna move far, far away and live together." Me and my sister exchanged a look that said, "What in the actual hell?" We had never seen her, and given how close we were with his family, we were shocked to hear this. I then asked Nice Brother's sister what the hell she was talking about, and she said, funnily enough, "I've never seen that woman in my life. All I know is she was his coworker and they barely talked. He actually was often annoyed by her, constantly trying to ask him out. All in all, she was outcast by everyone there, including the family of Nice Brother, for lying about their late family member." Am I the a-hole for calling CPS on a mom I babysat for? A bit of background. Before leaving for college last summer, I worked at a small business and asked if I could return this summer. My boss said that they were already completely staffed, and instead sent me in the direction of her friend who needed a babysitter for her 3 very young kids. The first thing I noticed when I went over was that the house smelled like dried piss, and that the entryway was so crowded with toys that I could not see the floor. I noticed that one of the children, 4, had peed through his diaper that obviously hadn't been changed in a while. When lunchtime came around, I called and texted about what I should give them, due to being left with no prior instructions. After both my call and texts went unanswered, I went into the kitchen. I saw piles of unclean dishes growing mold covering the counter. There were several old milk gallons festering. All 3 of the kids had dirt caked on the bottom of their feet, along with sticky stuff that I couldn't identify. When I left their house, my socks were covered in the same stuff. I also brushed the hair of one of the girls because it was matted. I came back again to babysit yesterday. The oldest child, 5, complained to me about the bees in the kitchen, which were flies swarming. There were piles of trash accumulating because the bin was full and starting to rot. Both parents also failed to tell me they had a teenage daughter who was apparently in the house both times I babysat, though I was only aware of it the most recent time when she came downstairs and startled me because I thought that someone had snuck into the house. I'll wrap it up by saying that while I was at the house yesterday, I observed several other signs of neglect. The children were pleading with me not to leave when the parents got home. I work at a daycare and am trained in recognizing signs of neglect and possible abuse, which is why I felt confident in my decision to make a call to CPS. I gave the operator all of the above information and what I could not fit into this post. For clarity, I chose not to talk to either of the parents about the situation before I called CPS, for several different reasons. A few hours after I made the call, I got a text from my old boss, who had set up the job for me, that said, "You called CPS on my friend?" I have not responded to the message and I do not plan to do so. My parents found out what I did as well, and claimed that I was in the wrong in making the call, as I could have, quote, wrongly accused great parents of abuse by getting social workers involved. I defended myself in saying that I did not accuse anyone of abuse, but rather wanted to report an environment that I thought was unsanitary and unsafe for young kids to live in. They went on to say that some people just live in filth, but can be great parents. I told them that I thought what I had encountered was beyond a reasonable point. Am I the a-hole? Edit to add, I don't know how the parents found out it was me who reported, but my best guess is that it was due to the timing, and me reporting details that only I would know as a babysitter, that were then repeated to them. I initially had no doubts about the sensibility of my actions, but was afterwards berated by my parents and essentially told that I could ruin both the kids' and parents' lives with my call, leading me to believe that I could be the a-hole in this situation, because maybe the home wasn't dirty enough, maybe it was none of my business, maybe I caught them at a bad time. I was told I made an impulsive decision by calling, and received very angry text messages from multiple people who found out, but were not involved. OP, you did nothing wrong at all, that was definitely the right move. Sure, there are plenty of situations where people wrongfully call CPS, and it just causes unneeded stress on the family. But if parents really have nothing to hide, then in the end it should be okay. But this does not sound like one of those situations. Especially with your background and your training to recognize this stuff, you're probably better off making that judgment than most people. If anyone's lives actually get ruined because of this situation, it's not through any fault of your own, it's the parents' fault. All you did was notice a concerning environment and called in a professional to make sure that the kids are safe. Entitled lady assumes I will pay for everything since I paid for a homeless. I was at the supermarket buying groceries for Sunday breakfast: eggs, pancake batter, bacon, and bread, when I saw a homeless man taking a few things off the shelf. I reached the counter and the homeless man was 2 places ahead of me. He was buying some milk, cereal, and bread. He didn't have enough money and was using coins. So I told the cashier that I will pay for him, and asked him to add a few more items like eggs and some biscuits, instant noodles, etc. He was really happy and thanked me continuously. Then he went to his cart and started eating. I was still in line when the person who was in between me and the homeless person got her stuff scanned, packed up, and started to go without paying. The cashier was confused and in a loud tone asked her to stop. She looked furious and confused when he asked her to pay. She told the cashier that the person behind her, aka me, would be paying for her groceries just like I did for the homeless guy. I was listening to music but stopped when I heard her entitlement falling from her mouth. I gave her a what the hell look, and by now she was the center of attention. She yelled and said that since I paid for him, I will have to pay for her, otherwise it's not right. Now I paid around 5 USD, 400 Indian rupees for his stuff. This lady was not getting a thing or two. She was buying like the most exotic meats, eggs, flavored milks. Her total was about 4,800 rupees, 60 USD. Now since I had a few things, I got the cashier to scan my stuff. I paid for mine and went out in a hurry. But this lady thought it was a good idea to grab my bag and not let me go and make me pay for her. The cashier asked me if I wanted him to call police, and I shook my head yes. The lady seemed to evolve and gain a superpower and left in a second like the Flash, leaving her stuff behind. The cashier told me that this lady does this often. She is a well-off lady living in a 2-story apartment and is a really entitled person who thinks everyone owes her. She has been jailed for 6 months and 2 months too. Well, I guess India is full of entitled people and my life is too. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate it. And also, hit that subscribe button for more. So I'm out of here, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.